Hello, welcome to this tutorial. In this tutorial, we are going to be looking at three sessions of the video. First one is going to talk about the analysis of this data that we see here. Second, we will see how we'll be able to visualize this data using simple progress charts. And then the third one, we will look at how we'll be able to use a conditional progress chart to visualize the data. So this video is all about visualizing data using progress charts. Okay, so we will look at how we can analyze this data that we have. And secondly, we'll present that using progress chart, the simple progress chart. And then thirdly, we will present the same chart, the same data, we'll visualize it using conditional progress chart. Now let's look at how this data is. This is what was presented. It's a hypothetical malaria vaccination campaign for 2022, 2020. This is hypothetical. It didn't happen. And so we are taking Nigeria as a reference country where there are 6 different zones. And each zone has some states. You can see the South-Southeast state has this, South-South zone has these states. These are the ones that fall under Southeast and so on and so forth. And then over here, we have the different targets for each state. This target is what runs every month. So every state looks at this target to run is a vaccination campaign for the entire year of 2020. Now, we need to use pivot table to analyze this. Now, let's go and see what our end product would look like. Our end product is something that should be in this format. Somebody wants to click not central, for instance, he sees this displayed as its performance. This is not central. The label is also carrying the name of that zone. Southwest, the label is carrying that and then displaying the performance. So this is where we want to come to. And then you see this is a pivot table. However, if we look at our data sheet, the way the data is presented, it will not be easy to use pivot table. And so we need to do some form of data transformation. When we transform this is what we are going to get. So we are going to have just about 5 columns, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, out of 1, 2, 3 plus 12, about 15. And so we will need a feature in Excel called Power Query to do that. Now, let's get started. Here we have the original data presented in just this array. This is not Excel official table. We didn't see any table here. But when we come to this one here, we click inside, we see this table design, right? This will tell us that this is an Excel official table. If I click outside, it goes off. If I click inside, it comes back. The same cannot be said for this. If I click inside, nothing shows. I click outside, nothing shows. So our first step is either we convert this to an Excel official table, or we'll go straight to use Power Query, and then it's one of its first thing is to convert it to a table. So now let's just go straight to Power Query. So I'm going to my data tab here. This is get and transform data. So we are getting data from here and we are going to transform it. And my source is from table or range. So if I click this, it has recognized that this is not a table. And so it's requiring me to create a table. If you are familiar with working with tables, then it's okay for you. We don't understand this. If you're not familiar with that, we have videos that we describe the advantages of using official table over this kind of so-to-so table, because it's not an official table. The advantages it has over such arrays of data. So I'm going ahead to click OK, and then you will see that it momentarily created that. Okay, let's see what's that. You see the table that he has created momentarily, and then it opens up this Power Query editor. So this is where we are going to transform the data that we want. We are going to flip those months that we see here. We're going to flip them so that all of them will come under one column. Now, this is not a tutorial on Power Query, so we won't take time to describe the different features and how it works. Okay, we have different videos where we have described Power Query, and from time to time we will be holding tutorials to describe the Power Query as a feature. But for now, we are just going ahead to select and select it and transform the data we want to transform. So there are 12 months in question, January to December, which is up to this point. So I'm selecting all of them. All the months are selected, and then I have these three that we do not want to touch. So I'm going ahead to right click and unpivot only the selected columns. So having done that, it has changed all the months into one column, and then with the respective values. So all I need to do here is to rename it as the month, and then here I'm selecting the type, which is sorry, not date. I want to, okay, yeah, date, not date and time, but date is fine. Then I come over here, let's change this to achievement. Since we have target, let's also look at it as achievement. So we are done. There are several other things that we could do here, but our focus now is just to transform only to unpivot this. So the next thing we are going to do is let's rename this as progress, because I have progress chart table here, which I created and deleted it. I just want to use something else. Progress, let's say progress table without the charts. Okay, so we have this table. By the way, let me just delete this. Let me just delete it. All right. So this is our progress table. Now we are done with what we want to do here. So all I need to do is go over here. I'm going to choose the first one. In the video, we explain what these two do. So I'm going to select this one, and then it brings it here. Look at my progress table here, and this is the table here. Look at the name here, also progress table. So we have done this transformation, flipping the data to give us this. So with this now, it's easy for us to use pivot table to run the analysis. So the next thing we need to do now is to insert pivot table. Remember that our destination is to get this set up, and then we now delve into the second session, which is to create this. All right, so let's go back to our progress table and then see how we can get this. This is a pivot table and this is a slicer. So over here, I'm going to insert a pivot table. Yeah, selected all that I want. Let me be sure that all my data sets is selected. So everything under that table is selected. And I'm going to place this on a new worksheet. So okay that we have this. Now, the focus of this analysis is to display the performance of each zone. Remember, in our data, the raw data here, we have these zones with their respective states. So the level that we are looking at is the performance of each zone. And so it's going to combine, let me remove this. It's going to combine all the achievements of the states under South-South, for instance. These are the various achievements for the entire year, and then going to compare it with this. Remember that this target for each state runs on each month. So in each month, the state is looking at this target to do its campaign. So if it comes to January, Edo, for instance, is looking at 1050 to do the same thing now. If it comes here, it's looking at 1050 to run its campaign. The same thing applies to all. And so what we are looking at now is to come up with a pivot table that will show us the performance of each zone, just the way we have it here. So these are the 6 zones. If I click on any one, it should be able to show me the performance. So what we want to do is to see how we can arrive at this point. Now let's go back to this point. We need our zones. Let our zone come over here. Okay, let's just put it in the filter here, and then we can now insert a slicer for the zone, right? So if we click this, it shows here. That's what we want to show. All right, so the next thing we do is to take our values. We are interested in target, we are interested in achievement. So we see that for North Central, this is the achievement. Northeast, this is the achievement. Northwest, and so on and so forth. All right, so for our slicer, let's get it into 2 columns. All right, so if 2 columns are okay, we are good to go. Otherwise, we can make it into 3 columns. Now, the next thing is for us to insert a calculated field in this pivot table that will tell us the performance in percentage. This is the achievement and this is the target. So what does this represent in percentage? All right, so again, we come to our pivot table, analyze. We come over to these calculations, we pick calculated field. We want to call that performance. Okay, performance. We can call it anything. We can call it scorecard or whatever. And how do we define this performance? Is achievement over target. We are good to go. And then this, it comes up here. So let's change this to percentage. And let's just lose 1 decimal place. All right, so we are good to go. If we choose any one, this is representing 48.2%, Northeast 49.9, South-South 67.3, Southwest 78.2. So this is where we end the analysis session of this video. Again, let's just recap what we have discussed. This is what we started with. Originally, it was not a table, but we had to either change this directly to table first, or we go to Power Query direct. And as we go to Power Query, the first step is to convert this to a table. Already you can see the table here. It wasn't like that when we started, okay? And so when we go to under data, we clicked this, and then the Power Query editor loaded, and then we went ahead to do our flip. All right, so let's just describe how we did that flipping. We came over here and selected all the months which we felt were not in the right structure, and we selected all of them. We right clicked and we said on pivot only selected columns. The reason is because we have some other columns that we do not want to on pivots or flip, and so we selected those ones that we are interested in. And then when we did the transformation, it gave us this result. So I'm going to discard this because we don't have that. So this is what he gave us over here, because all the months have been flipped and put under one column. So this is easy for us to analyze using pivot table. And so the next step we took was to go to this insert, okay, click this, and then we made sure that the entire table is selected. Again, the advantage of this is once you click inside, it picks that and then gives you the name of the table, that is where you are picking. Of course, you can see that the name of this table here is already reflecting here, table under progress table. Okay, so this is what we did, and by default this was selected. So we agreed with it to say, okay, let's place this pivot table on a new sheet, which it did, and pasted it on sheet 2. Of course, whenever it's going to paste on a new sheet, it's going to create a new sheet, and usually on the left side of the active cell that you are working on, and then it deposits it there. So this is what we have here. And then once we got that, what we did next was to pick our zone and put it under filter here, and then we inserted a slicer for the zone so that we can be using the slicer to change. And then the name here, we are going to use this name and link it to something we want it to, to the object, in this case the chart, so that whatever that is here, it will pick. All right. And the next thing we did was to bring the values. We brought our target, we brought our achievement, and then after bringing them together, then we went to analyze, pivot table analyze, and we came to under the calculations, we picked this calculated field. We defined what we want to create, and that we called it performance. You can see it over here. This was what we created, and we defined it. After naming it, we came here to define it. How do we arrive at that? Since this is a calculation, what's the formula? And we said this is equals to achievement all over target. And so after doing that, we now came straight to change this value, because it was in decimal. We changed it to percentage. And so this is where we end the first session of this video, which is just running some operations to transform the data, to make the data easy for us to analyze. And here we are with our pivot table. So in the next video, we are going to show how the step-by-step process of creating a progress chart. And then in the third session, we're going to describe the step-by-step way of creating a conditional progress chart. Now, let's just look at here. This simple progress chart is just telling us that, well, this is the value, this is the score for each zone. Okay, it's not showing any color, it's not showing anything, simply by that. And I did this using pivot table, but you can also do this through another way. We'll look at this flipped. This is what I did previously in the advertorial. When we did this, all you need to do was to simply come here and select, and then it displays. Select whichever one it displays. So these are two ways of creating this. So, but in the video that we are going to create, the step-by-step, we are going to use this one that is over here, okay, so that it's easy for us to click here, and then we are able to see this changing. Then let's also look at what the conditional progress chart looks like. This is still the same pivot table that we use for the progress chart. However, this progress chart is a bit different because it's showing us different colors now. We have defined our rules, and we say if anybody or any zone scores less than 50%, let it display red. And if that score is between 50 and 74%, let it display blue. But anyone that scores up to 75% and above, up to 100, let it display green. And so let's test it one after the other. For North Central, the score was 48.2%, which was less than which is less than 50%, and of course is displaying red. Northeast, the same thing, 49.9, very close to 50, but yet it's still under green. What about the northwest? Northwest scored 51.2 and falls within the range of blue color. South scored 67.3, which is still within this. And then when we come to southwest, they scored 78.2, which is under the green, and the same thing with this. So this is a conditional progress chart. So we are going to describe this in the third session of this video. All right, so let's go over to the progress chart.
Hello everybody, my name is Jennifer Smith and I'll take you on how to create a progress chart. Now, a progress chart is a type of graph which is used in data visualization. It helps you to display your progress made towards a certain goal. It allows you to monitor and prioritize your objectives and provide critical data for strategic decision making. Now, I like preparing a progress chart because it's quite technical and it's very interesting when you have the outcome. So this is what a progress chart looks like. It has a circle and has different segments, and the colors help you to indicate how far you have gone. So if you notice, this darker side is trying to depict this percentage, 52%, and that is this data that is being presented over here. If I change this value to a less value, let's say 30%, this would also change as well to show you how far 30% has gone. So I'm going to teach you how to prepare this. So I'm going to use a different data sets to create this. So for example, when you have your progress chart, your everything has to be in percentage, because 100% is it's a full circle, which is equal to so the data set I'm going to use is I'm going to put a value here, which is also going to be in percentage. So I can put 30% as my let's say this is the score. Let me call this score, and I'll call this dump, right? So what goes under the dump is 100% minus what is in this score. So I'm going to type equals to 1. 1 is the same as 100% minus this, and it's to give me 70%. So this is the value I'm going to use to on my when I'm creating my own progress chart. So to start off, first of all, I need to click in the blank cell to ensure that I'm not clicking any data. I click on this Insert tab and go to this pie chart icon. When I tap on it, I'll select the donut chart. Let me move this over here. At this point, I right click, or you can actually select data from up here, but whichever one is good for you is okay. So you can right click or select data from here. Then I click on add. In my series name, I don't write anything at this point, but in my series value, I make sure I enter 1 into 20 places. So I already have 1 here. So I put a comma and add it 19 more times. Once I'm done with that, I click on OK. Then if you look at this chart, you can see it has 20 segments here and the chart title. Once I'm done with this, I click on OK and come out of it. At this point, I can delete the chart title as well as these series because I don't need them for the progress chart. So I would like to make this into a square. So I'm going to reduce the length of the space that was given to me, this square, please. So how to do that is when you come to this place, you click on, you type here and change this value to ensure that it's the same as this one. So in my own case, it could be, my own is saying 3 inches for the height and the width is 5 inches. I want to change the width to 3 inches. So once I do that, it's now a perfect square. So next we'll do is I double click on any of these segments, or actually, yes, all right click on it, sorry. Clicking on it, you have to ensure that all the segments are selected. If not, any changes you effect will only be effected on one of the segments that is highlighted. So what I want to do next is to change the donut hole. This can be done by either sliding the dial here, clicking on this arrow up, arrow down, or typing the value here. So I want to make it 50%. Okay. Once we're done with that, change the color. We need to change the color. So I come to this paint bucket. And I like to make this, all the this colorful segments to be a solid color, one color. So I'm going to click on solid fill. And then I'll select the color that I want it to be. So I can select the color blue. Yes. All right, so we're done with this first part. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go back again to our chart, right click, and then we add data. That's why I'm going to select data. Now I'm going to add some more data to this. This time, I'm going to add a series name. And my series name is this one. So I'm going to select these two as my series name. And then series value, I'll clear what is here and select these two. So you notice there is another circle on the outer part of the first donut we had done. Then I click on OK, then OK here. So the next thing we're going to do is we're trying to superimpose this outer chart, this outer circle with the inner one. To do that, I have to right click on the chart, or click on this particular segment anywhere within this square and change chart series type. So if I hadn't clicked, let me go back out first. If I clicked in the center of this chart and don't change chart type, I'll need to come to combo to change the chart type. So let me continue from this place in case anyone comes at this level. So if you remember, in the first one we had done, when we chose the series, when we chose the first data, we didn't include a series name to it. So that's what the Excel defaultly named it as series 1. While the second one we called it was score and dump, which we had highlighted. So this first one is supposed to be a donut chart. So when we click on chart type, we go down and click on this donut chart. Then the second one is supposed to be a pie chart. And then we scroll down again and make this a pie chart. Then we want to make this pie chart our secondary axis so that it hides the donut chart which we had done initially. Then we'll click on OK for it to effect the changes. This is very good. Now we're going to add the colors to make so that our progress chart can look very interactive. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this blue segment, which represents 30%, and I'll click on no fill because I don't want it to show any color. I want the segments which I had prepared before to show. Then I'll click on this orange part and click on make it solid fill. But this time I'll paint it white and change the transparency to 20%, which I can do by changing the dial, moving the dial line across, right, using clicking up the arrows, or typing the value I want directly in there. So you can see it's now showing the transparent a bit to show what is behind. So at this point, we're almost done with preparing our progress chart. Next, we're going to add a text box so that it can show us the value that has been represented. So go to Insert tab, click on Shapes, and insert a text box. So text box can be inserted so that it just fits directly into this inner circle. I click on the outer part. I don't want this blinking cursor to be showing. So I click on the outer part of the text box. And go to my formula bar, type equals to, and I'm referencing it to this particular cell. So it shows here. At this point, I can manipulate it, make it in the center of my box, increase the font size. I can also change the font style to be something more prominent, as well as the color. What is it? Good. So at this point, I can also change the color of the value in the text box. So change it to this. I could also make it bigger so that it's very prominent. Okay, this font is a bit too big, so I'm not seeing the value very clearly. So I'll change something more visible, right? So this is quite visible, and this is okay. So at this point, I can also remove the outline and background, sorry, the fill, no color and outline of the text box. I could do the same to this chart, remove the color and then the fill so that it's like a floating chart, but this outline is still showing. The outline. Okay. So now it looks like you're not seeing an outline. So this is our progress chart. Now to test and see whether it works, I type a different value here. You see it moves and shows 70%. And then I can also change, if I want to change the value to 20%, it also now moves and shows 20%. Now this is how we prepare our progress charts. So hope you enjoyed the session.
Now let's discuss the conditional progress chart. Starting from where we ended the first session, where we described how we used pivot table to arrive at this point, as after the power query. So we want to insert a progress chart here that will change color based on the values that we see here. Now, there are some functions that we need to use. We're going to use the logic function. Again, we are going to make some certain assumptions. The first assumption is this is not a tutorial to describe the logic functions. It's a tutorial we are going to employ the logic functions to determine whether the arguments are true or false. If they are true, return this value for us. If they are false, return this value for us. Okay, so that's what we are going to do. But however, the guidelines that will help us to understand how to create this, we are going to lay down. Now, here, I'm going to choose any of these cells, okay, any of it. So let's say we bring this close to like this point, and we just want to be sure that there is a space here. It doesn't matter, you can leave it. Okay, so I want this score to pick value from this point. The reason is that once you are working with a pivot table, it's always good to maintain some safe distance when you are creating something else on this spreadsheet, because there are two environments here right now. There is environment for the pivot table. Once you click this pivot table, you are interacting with the pivot table using these pivot table fields. But when you click outside, this is a separate environment. So when we are working in these two separate environments, I always encourage to leave safe distance. And this is what we have done. Okay, so we have left two big spaces for the pivot table. And it won't be right if you put it here. By the time you are working on pivot table, you may run into some technical issues. So I always like to keep this distance. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to link this to pick values from here. So if I'm changing anything here, whatever the values are here will become here. This is interacting with this, but we have linked this to this so that this can also interact with this. Okay, so that's the first thing to do. Now, for a progress chart that is conditional, you can define as many conditions as possible. For our own case, we have defined 3 different conditions. Now, let's say, assuming we want to use yellow, you can use different colors that you want. Now, this is the score. So we are going to put some formulas in each of these. We are going to ask the formula, look into this score. If the score is within this value, let it reflect here. Let it come out, let it appear here. If this value, however, is up to 50 but less than 75, let it appear here. If the score now becomes big and gets up to 75% or above, let it appear here. So this is what we are going to do. The moment we are able to achieve this, and then we change these values, if it is here, like this one now, which is this 48.2, it should appear here. If we come to southeast, which is 81, 85.1, let it appear here. If we come to south-south, which is 67, let it appear here, and so on and so forth. So let's get started. So here is a simple logic. If the value is less than 50, come over here. Now, there is a trick that one needs to be very, very conscious of. And then it will help you to overcome some problems. If we put points, if we just limit ourselves to anything less than 50, and then we forget about the decimal points, we might run into problem. So it's always good when you are dealing with ranges to consider the possibilities. If it is not less than 50, what if it is 49.999999? And then you approximate what happens. So we are going to equals. Okay, it looks like this. I need to put this. Okay, there are figures there already. All right, so let me put this. This is equals to if. So it's a logical test. I'm asking it to now go and check what is here. If what is in this F4 is less than 50, let it appear here. So I'm asking it, check if this is less than, let's say, again, when you are dealing with percentages, it's either you use 50% or something percent, or 0 point that, or 1 representing 100%. All right, so let's use 50%. So if this is less than 50%, what should it do? We want it to show the figure right inside this cell. So put the cell if the value falls below 50%. But what if it is not above, if it is not less than 50%, what should it do? Make it blank. Close. So right now, it is not up to 50. Sorry, it's above 50, and so it's not showing. Like we told it, if it is if it does not meet that criteria of being less than 50%, let it be blank. But if we put here, this is less than 50, it shows there. Northeast is less than 50, it shows. Northwest, the value here is above 50%, so it's 50.4. So it's not showing. The same thing here, 78, it's not showing. Here, it's not showing. So we have done for this. The next thing is we need to define this. So we are again going to tell Excel, please look on this cell F4, check the value. If the value falls within this range, bring it here. If it does not fall within this range, leave it blank. Okay, so that's what we're going to put here. Now, because there is a lower and upper limit, we are going to nest two functions together. So here is the first one is if, and then we are going to nest and together with it, because there are two conditions that must be met. The first condition is that that value must be 50. It should be equal or greater than 50. And also, if the value is looking at 50 and above, where will it end? That is where the and comes in. All right, so we are going to say, check for this value. If this value is above or equal to 50%, and again, this same value must be less than 75%. So these are the two conditions that must be met. This value must be equal to 50 or above. 50.1 is above, so on and so forth. And then it goes through up to 75. I think, no, we need, this is not up to, this is supposed to be less than 75. And so it flows from 50 upward. Once it gets to 74.999999, that is not up to 75. Let it bring it into this yellow. And so if this condition is met, what do? Let it return this value. But if this condition is not met, let that field be 0. Let it be blank. So we put blank. We cover. You now see that this value falls within this range, and that's why it's appearing here. It's not appearing here. So we come and define for this. Again, this is one way forward. So it's not going to use the AND function. It's just going to use only if function. And again, so we are going to put if this value is greater or equals to 75%, what should it do? Return the value. What if the score is outside this range, either below or what does it do? Make it blank, close it, okay it. So now let's see if we can get value that is up to 75. You see, Southwest has 78, which is in under the green, and so it has come there. So this is the first thing that we need to do, which is of course the most difficult. Now, I have what I put here as dummy. You may put it complementary, you may put it anything, you may even leave it blank. But it's important that this plus this plus this plus whatever that is here is 100%. Okay? All these values, they must be equal to 100%. Of course, you know that this is blank, this is blank, this is now 78.2. So what should be here now that must make it to 100% is 21.8. Now let's see how that turns out to be true. So we are going to say this is 1 minus, so it's going to be the sum of all these three, the sum of this and this and this. All right, so this should give us the value. All right, so since we are dealing with 1 decimal point, so let's have this 21.8. So if this and this gives us 100% over here. All right, so if we change this, here we have 48.2, here is 51, making it 100. Over here, the same thing here, so we have this here. Okay, so the next thing we are going to do is to begin to insert the progress chart components. It's very easy. So I'm coming over here. I'm going to use donut charts. Okay, so progress chart can be used. You can use donut charts, and in some cases pivot pie chart, but we're going to use donut chart here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to insert data. Let me select my data, and so the data that we are interested in is series are here, 1, 2, 3, 4. So these 4 series, these are the things we are using. Now I okay that, and we are here. Now usually for donuts, for chart like this, I usually don't like having those chart elements there. All right, so we can do some few things here. Let's say we come over here. If you like, you can reduce this. All right, it's just by choice, however you want. Again, we can make it transparent. So assuming we want to make it transparent, go to chart and make it transparent. Now I want to show us why it's transparent. I keep this here, it's blocking whatever that is behind, but once we make it transparent, you can see through it, then we are good to go. Again, if I click outside, you will see the lines outline. If you like, you can remove that, but let's just go ahead to work on this. So right now, this is what we have, and I'm going to change this one, and I want this one. We can decide to plug it to any of this. So like I said, we can use any of these values. Now this is a bit, because it's equal, so but this is slightly bigger than this, because where we have this data right now is 50.4%, which is under the yellow. So let's go ahead and fill this with yellow. So let's get solid fill, and then let's use yellow. We are leaving this for now. Great. Now let's pick another one that is not in yellow. What about this? Now this is green, so we pick this, we change the color to solid fill, but now if you like, can we use this bright green? Well, it's all left to you. You can use this. Again, the next thing is red. Which zone has red? Okay, this is it, and this is blue, so we are going to change this blue to red. Solid fill again, and red. So we are good to go. Now this is north central, red. Let's see northeast, still red because of the value. What about the southeast? Southeast scores 85.1, and that becomes green. South South is 67.3, which is within the yellow. And then what about this? Scores green 78, and so on and so forth. Now the next thing we need to do is to change this color to whichever one we want, which is going to be for all of them. So which color are we going to use? Sorry, I hope this is the one I've selected. Good. So which color? Let's use anyone. Let's say we use something like this. If we do the transparent, no. Let's just use something that is quite distinctive. I don't know. All right, so I think this may be fine. Let's see how this all run. Okay, so whichever color you want, it's working perfectly well. So the next thing we want to do is, let me reduce this. The next thing we want to do is we need to put the value inside so that it can pick whatever value that is corresponding to the color. Again, we are going to get an object or an object or a text box. So I prefer to use text box. So let's see, we are going to get the 3 of them. So let me see the one that is good, or not really good, but in terms of okay, assuming this is 100%, will it take? Yes, it will. So I'm just trying to gauge the size that will fit in here. All right, so what I need to do now is I'm going to duplicate this into 3 for each of these values. Control D, and I have them 3 places, okay? And all right, so let's use this for here. I'm just keeping I can keep them anywhere, but I just wanted to be sure which one is which, because at a point in time you may not really be able to distinguish. So here we are going to say, let it pick value, because this is red, let it pick value that is here. Enter. So right now this is let's see if we put this one here. Good. So let's use this to format it. And what this thing are we using? Is this 14? Okay, 14 is okay. And because it's red, let it go with red. All right. Okay, we may change the yellow, because having yellow fonts may not really augur well. Okay, so let's change this. Let's change this color. Which one is yellow? Which one is yellow? Good. So let's change this color. Just permit me, because I just realized that that was the reason why we changed it to blue. Which other color can we use? Can we use this, or whichever color? Okay, doesn't matter. When we get to that point, we'll see what we can do with the font color. Okay, so yes, we are done with this. Now for this, now we are going to ask it to pick any value it sees here, and for us to get value to format that, let's change this. Okay, then the next one is this, equals, pick any value that you see here. Now let's go to any of these ones that has this, so that we can use it to format. Okay, so we are good to go. This is yellow. Which one is yellow? Which one is yellow? Okay, so it's also good. This is this. Great. So I think here, this, where is the yellow? Is it yellow? Okay, so this yellow, you see the point that I'm making. I wanted this to be yellow, just for, you see, it's a bit faint if we use yellow. Except we can leave it. Okay, I'll leave that to you. You can use whatever color, but just make sure that it looks aesthetic. So here it's green, and let me put green here, and good. So the next thing we are going to do is we are going to carry all these three, put them together into one, so that nobody will even notice that they are there. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the outline. I remove the outlines. I'm going to put them in the middle, bring them together, then put them, align them in center. They are one now. And then let me group them so that when I'm picking only one. Good. So here we are. And holding that, I'm now clicking this so that I have selected all of them. Again, I'm going to center it. I'm going to middle it. All right, so there we are. And I'm going to group it also. Good. So if I click anywhere and I pick this, I'm picking everything together. Now let's see how this works. If I click this, okay, you see something happened here. Okay, let's see what we missed. So again, I'm going to ungroup them. Good. Okay, what happened here was that I did not make them transparent. Okay, so I'm going to, sorry, undo this one. I'm going to bring them out. So I'm going to ungroup them. Okay, so we are going to have a little problem. So let's bring out this one. Okay, so make this one now transparent, no fill. Good. So this is one. Let me drop it here. And then let me bring out the outline so that I can use it to pick it when I'm looking for it. There's another one here. There's another one here. So let me put an outline again. Good. And then let me make it transparent, because that was the thing that caused our problem. So let me put it here. Then there's another one here. Give it an outline and make it transparent. Good. So having selected all of them now, having done that for all of them, I'm going to select all of them wherever they are. So going to use the same technique of bringing them together as center and then putting them in the middle. And then I'm going to remove the outline for all of them, no outline. Then let me group them again. I've grouped them. So let's get back to this point. I still repeat the same thing, holding that and then holding this. I'm going to align center. I'm going to align middle. Then let's group ahead and group. All right, so this should give us what we are looking for now. We can see it's yellow, it changed. This is yellow, so the same issue we have. You see this is turning to green. What about this? It's turned to red. So the issue is having a color that will match the color. Personally, I would want to have a color that will match with the font color. You can see if we see yellow, if we put yellow here, it's not going to show us a good font. We won't see it clearly. All right, so if, assuming you don't want to see this outline, of course, you are going to ungroup before, ungroup, and then click this one now, come to format, remove the outline. Then you can now click and group back again. All right, so the outline is no longer there and it still works perfectly. All right, so the next thing we want to do is to attach a label to this right now. And again, you can use text box or you can use an object. So let's go ahead and insert using an object. And if you are artistic, you can do better things than what I'm doing here. This is demonstration, so it's something that you can actually work and then perfect. Okay, so let me edit. Let me just use let me say I want to use this. Okay, something like this. And let me have this fill. Will this work for me or will this work? Whichever one that works, it's fine. And don't give it any, just the way you want. Okay, and I can come here and choose any of these bevel presets. Say this is what I want, assuming this is what I want. Okay, and then another interesting aspect now is I'm going to do a concatenation. So there are two things. Number one, I'm going to tell this to pick value from somewhere here and something else that I'm going to coin. So let's say under my B13, cell B13, I'm going to say Northwest malaria vaccination performance, for instance. Okay, so this is malaria. So here I'm going to ask it to pick whatever you see here. All right, so if I change this to North Central, I'm going to see North Central here. If I choose Northeast, that's what I'm going to see here. All right, so my concatenation right now, okay, here let me just put also 2020. So the concatenation that I'm going to use here, let me just put it here so that we'll know what to pick. I'm going to say concatenate this one. Let me put a space and then this one. I close my bracket. And so here, I'm going to link it and say, pick whatever you see here. And then you see over here, of course, I can decide to make this thing look beautiful. Okay. All right. So if I change this to North Central, it's showing me 48. It's showing me North Central here. If I choose Northwest, it's showing me Northwest here. Malaria vaccination 2020. Okay. So I think I can open here because there are still write-ups that are hidden under here. Northwest malaria vaccination performance 2020. This is South-South malaria vaccination performance. All right, so this is the step-by-step guide on how to create a conditional progress chart. A brief recap. We started with this, which is already here, the pivot table and the slicer already inserted. All we did was to come over here and use logic. If you click here, we are saying whatever is here, Excel should consider the value. If the value falls below 50%, let it bring it here. If it does not fall below 50, maybe it's above 50, let it just ignore bringing any value there. And then we came over here and we say, you should check this F4 for the value. If the value falls within 50% to 74%, let it bring the value here. If it does not fall within this range, leave it blank. And then we came to this top point and said, look at the figure or the value in F4. If it is up to 75% and above, bring it here. And so this is what we did as we are changing the zones and the scores are changing, the respective fields are receiving the values as we have programmed. And then here is the complement of the 100%. So we're saying that all this, the reason we selected all this is that we want all of them to have a portion in this chart. So anyone that comes, of course, we know that it's only one that will come at any point in time. And then this, whatever we have here plus this, is going to give us 100%. And what we did to get this was to subtract whatever we have here from 100%, and we got this. And so we now went to insert our chart. We selected this donut chart. We clicked here, and then we needed to get the number of series that we have. So don't mind this. It's already selecting because my cursor was on that point, so don't mind it. Okay, so let me just remove that. Click anywhere else. It's better you click elsewhere because of the method we are using. Click anywhere else and then go to insert. This is right now it's not picking any data, which is fine. And then we are going to now select data, then add the we are not interested in legends, and so we now selected the entire 4, 1, 2, 3, together with the dummy or together with the complement to give us 4. Look at the 4 here, which is what we needed. And then we OK it, and there we are. And for me to capture space, I decided to remove these chart elements. I removed them. And so even though I selected 4 series, but only 2 actually have values, which is why we have these 2 slices. And then the next thing I did was say, well, you can come over here and decide to reduce the donut hole size. If you like, you can put it like this, however you wish. Okay, these are all options. Okay, so we reduce it to some point, and then we now began to change the colors based on what we define. So if we define this, the value that is active is under yellow. So we change this to yellow. Of course, it's here. Change it to yellow, solid fill, go to points, put yellow. Then we change to another one that has different color so that we can apply that color. All right, so this is how we create conditional progress charts to display your data and visualize them. So you see that this is very, very easy to create, and it's very, very captivating when you present it to the audience. They will appreciate what you have done. So in this video, we are attaching the file that you can work with. All you need to do is to click and download. It wouldn't be nice to start working on it. The system will ask you to request access. Just click download and you save an offline copy to use. I hope you find this video helpful. Like our page, our channel, subscribe and share for others to follow along. Thank you and goodbye.